Well, in the latest of the blows to the tax-paying public, who are already at their wits' end due to a razor-sharp cost-of-living crisis, the government now plans to boost the public funding of the monarchy by 45% from 2025. Now, look, this puts people like me on a bit of a sticky wicket, doesn't it? Because I love the royal family, and I think that there are certain expenditures that this country, well, clearly, in light of other things, can afford, and the royal family brings a lot to this country. But that's a lot of money, isn't it? It's a lot of money. The details of the increase were revealed in a review of royal funding published by the Treasury on Thursday. Now, it states that the royal family's grant is due to increase from 86 million to 125 million. Look, there's got to be more to this than meets the eye. There's got to be more to this than meets the eye. And with me to pick through this is royal commentator Michael Cole. Michael, thank you very much. Is it as straightforward as... Thank you very much. Is it as straightforward as the taxpayer paying 45% more for the king?
Yeah. Good afternoon, Patrick. Yeah, big numbers, a big increase. But, of course, it doesn't go into the back pocket of the king. Almost all this money goes on salaries. And at the moment, the refurbishment of Buckingham Palace, that's costing a bomb. And that's why there's been this big, big increase, which is only going to last for 2 years, 2025 until 2027. So that's the real reason. And then it will revert to a lesser sum. But, you know, there are 193 nations who are members of the United Nations. All of them have a head of state, and if you have a head of state, you've got to maintain him or her in the right way, because they're the representatives of your country, and they've got to be maintained with some dignity and some style. And of course, it's expensive. But if you look at it, if you look at America, for instance, the maintenance of the president costs $1.4 billion a year. And, of course, the president also gets a salary of $400,000. Yeah. And when he retires, he gets a pension for life of $213 million. The king, of course, isn't paid. He has his own estates of Sandringham and Balmoral, and he owns his house in Gloucestershire, Highgrove. So it's not him getting rich. It's the cost of this major renovation.
I think one of the problems, though, isn't it, is that stuff like this plays into Republican hands. The hashtag Not My King was trending again today. Yeah. And people will look at these numbers now and say, oh, this is ridiculous, look at what we're paying for. And it jars for some people.
Of course. But you've got to go a little bit back in history. When all these crown lands were ceded by the king, he gave them up. It was in return for a percentage of the Duchy of Lancaster. So the income from the crown estates, which used to be personally owned by the king, are now given to for the maintenance of the monarchy and for doing things in the right way. Now, at the moment, 12% is going to be the target figure, 12% of the profit that comes from the Crown Estates. It's going up to 25%, or has been up to 25%, because of this major refurbishment of Buckingham Palace, where, incidentally, the king is not very keen on living. But nevertheless, it has to be done because it's the symbol of the monarchy. Now, listen, you and I are not apologists for this. It's a matter of fact. If you have a head of state, you've got to maintain them in the right and proper manner. It's as simple as that.
You know what? I'm wondering. I always worried about this. I think most people worried about it when our late Queen passed away, she was so iconic and so well loved, and she'd been around for so long, and she was so good as well, that anyone would struggle to replace her. I don't want to use too much of a crass footballing analogy, but anyone who replaced Sir Alex Ferguson was not going to do a particularly good job, as David Moyes found out to his peril, of course. And I look at this now and I just wonder, would the public not be a lot more accepting, do you think, of this amount of money being going to do up Buckingham Palace, etc., if the Queen was still living in it and not King Charles?
Well, of course, she's a fantastically hard act to follow. And I haven't always been the greatest fan of Prince Charles, now King Charles. But I must say, since he succeeded to the throne. He hasn't put a foot wrong. He's done extraordinarily well through some quite testing, difficult times. And he's showing every sign of being a good monarch. And a short reign can be an extremely good reign, as been proved in the past by his great-great-grandfather, Edward VII, who was a very, very popular monarch. Dirty Bertie, he was known by to some, and Edward the Compressor by others. But he was extremely popular with the British because he liked doing what they're doing. Eating, drinking, and carousing. He enjoyed all that. And of course, they loved it too. Of course, it's a hard act to follow. But I believe that the people of the country see the value in having a constitutional monarchy. Interesting, the New York Times, the Grey Lady of America, never a great friend of this country, published a great feature article saying exactly that having a non-political head of state is a unifying force and is a tremendous asset in foreign and overseas relations, diplomatic relations. So there are merits to it. And if you have a head of state, whether it's a president or a king, there are 43 monarchies in the world. There are 149 republics. The monarchies tend to be, Patrick, the happier lands.
Well, it's true. And actually, you know what? The parallels between America and us, I would argue that anybody who would rather have Joe Biden than King Charles needs to get their heads checked immediately. But, Michael, thank you very, very much. Michael Cole there.